My mom passed away earlier this year. It was sudden. She had a stroke in her sleep and never woke up. I was 23, living alone in the house we used to share. I did not know what to do with myself. Every room felt way too quiet and depressing. I tried journaling, cleaning, even baking, but nothing helped. Eventually, I decided to turn her old flower bed in the backyard into a garden. Something colorful, something living. I spent almost every evening out there. I pulled the weeds, laid down fresh soil, planted hydrangeas, lavender, and snapdragons. I'd work until it got dark, then sit on the back steps and just breathe. I found a kind of peace during this routine. Now, the creepy stuff, it started small. Little things I did not pay attention to at first. A trowel I left on the porch went missing. I figured I dropped it somewhere and just forgot. A small pile of cigarette butts near the back fence. I assumed a neighbor had tossed them over. Then, one morning, I noticed a boot print in the mud. Bigger than mine, and definitely not mine. Still, I brushed this off. Maybe it was a meter reader, maybe someone cutting through. I did not want to start imagining things. One Thursday, I was working later than usual. It was around 8:30, early summer, still a bit of light in the sky. I was watering the new lilies I just planted when I heard something, like a twig snapping. I turned around fast, expecting to see a raccoon or maybe a stray cat, but there was nothing. I even called out, "Hello?" just in case it was a kid or a neighbor, but there was just silence. I felt uneasy, but I told myself I was just being jumpy. That night, I had trouble sleeping. Around 2 a.m., I got up to get water and happened to glance out the kitchen window. It overlooks the backyard. That's when I saw the figure, standing by the fence near the hydrangeas, completely still, not moving, just watching the house. I froze. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I was going to throw up. I blinked hard, looked again, and he was gone. I did not sleep for the rest of the night. I told myself it was a shadow, maybe a tree or the neighbor's grill. But the next morning, I went out to check and saw fresh footprints in the dirt again, right where I'd seen the figure. Now, there's a part of the fence where the boards are loose, and it looked like someone maybe had pushed through them. I nailed them back as best I could, and told myself I just imagined it. Still though, I stopped gardening after sunset. A few days passed, and then one afternoon, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. One of the garden gnomes I'd placed near the flower bed, something my mom had always loved, had been moved. It was now facing the house instead of the flowers. I hadn't touched it. I know I hadn't. And that same day, I found another cigarette butt near the hydrangeas, still warm. That meant whoever it was had been there while I was inside. Well, I called the police and reported what I could. Trespassing, possible prowler, strange activity in my backyard, that sort of stuff. They sent someone out who walked the perimeter. They made a report and told me to install cameras. Probably a bored teenager, the officer said to me. Still, keep your doors locked. Well, I installed 2 small motion-activated cameras the next day, one on the porch and one facing the garden. For a couple of nights, nothing happened. Then, one morning, I checked the footage. At 1:43 a.m., the motion sensor had gone off. The video showed a tall man, hooded, thin, standing behind the hydrangeas. Not doing anything though, just standing there. In my opinion, he was clearly watching my house. He stayed for almost 6 minutes before turning and disappearing through the back fence. I'm not lying when I say I couldn't breathe. I saved the clip and called the police again. They said they'd make another report, but since the guy hadn't done anything technically illegal beyond trespassing, which I thought was illegal, there wasn't much they could do unless I caught him again. Well, I showed them the footage. The officer nodded, said I did the right thing, and told me to stay somewhere else if I could that night. I started staying at my aunt's place across town after that. She offered to have me stay there permanently, but I couldn't bring myself to leave my mom's house for good. I went back a week later during the day to water the plants and check things out. That's when I noticed it. Another garden gnome had been moved. This one was holding a little welcome sign. It was now sitting directly in front of the kitchen window, facing the inside. Well, that was the last straw for me. I sold the house 3 months later. I still miss my mom, and I feel like I abandoned that garden we worked so hard on. But I just couldn't stay there. Whoever he was, he never broke in, he never spoke, and he never touched me. But he was watching, and knowing that someone out there had fixated on me, on my grief, on my space, my home, and my garden, well, that was enough. Please, be careful out there. Lock your doors, get cameras. Do not ignore that feeling when something does not feel right. When I was 18, I found out that I was pregnant. A lot of my friends told me not to keep the baby, said the father was a deadbeat, that I ruined my life. But I wasn't going to get rid of my baby just because it would be hard. And yeah, it was hard, trust me. The father was completely absent. I worked extra shifts just to keep us afloat. Eventually, I saved enough to get a little 2-bedroom condo downtown for me and my son, John. And trust me, it wasn't fancy, but it had a small backyard with a patch of soil where I could grow vegetables. So I started planting tomatoes and zucchinis every summer. It became kind of our thing. John especially loved helping in the garden with his little plastic tools that I got him. It was our happy place. This happened when John was 3 years old. It was a hot summer night, and I remember it clearly because we had picked some tomatoes together and used them to make pasta for dinner, which was John's favorite. Afterward, we sat on the couch, had some ice cream, and watched a cartoon before bed. It was one of those rare, peaceful nights where everything felt stable and good. But sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up. At first, I thought it was just the neighbors. The walls in the condo were thin, and it wasn't uncommon to hear doors shut or people arguing. But this noise was different. It had a rhythm to it. Clink, clink, clink. It was metal hitting metal. I sat up and realized it was coming from the backyard. I went downstairs to check, and sure enough, the gate near the garden was swinging and hitting the side of the metal fence. Now, this was odd because I always latched it, especially after John nearly got it open once. But I figured maybe I didn't close it properly. It was a hot night. Maybe I was distracted. I stepped outside, latched it again, and went back to bed. The next day, John and I went outside in the late afternoon. He was in his little sun hat, playing in the dirt with his toy shovel and bucket. I was picking off dead leaves from the tomato plant when I heard him say, "Mommy, what kind of plant is this?" He was crouched near the corner of the garden, poking at something in the soil with his shovel. I walked over, thinking maybe a bug or a dead bird. At first glance, it looked like a clump of mashed up grapes. But when I squatted down for a better look, my stomach literally dropped. It was an ear. A human ear. Pale, partially buried, but definitely real. I grabbed John without saying a word and rushed him inside. I threw him straight in the bath. I had no idea if he touched it with his hands or not, and then I called 911. The officer showed up within 10 minutes. I walked him around back, and he confirmed immediately that it was indeed a human ear. He called it in, and a second car showed up with a couple of detectives in it. They taped off the backyard, started taking photos, and asked me all sorts of questions. Had I seen anything unusual? Had anyone been in the yard? That sort of stuff. And then one of them said something that made my blood run cold. Apparently, just the day before, someone in the neighborhood right next to ours had also found a human ear buried in their backyard too. 2 ears, 2 different backyards. No explanations. Well, they did not tell me much. They bagged the ear, took a few more notes, and left. That night, a patrol car was parked outside our condo. Same thing for the next 2 nights, in fact. But after that, nothing. When I called the department to follow up, the woman on the phone acted like I was bothering her. She said the case was active, and they could not share anything with me. When I called again a week later, I got transferred twice and then hung up on. I tried a third time and was told, pretty bluntly, that if I wasn't in danger, I did not need to keep calling. But that's the thing. I did feel like I was in danger. Someone had buried a body part in my backyard, and nobody could tell me why or how. Well, trust me when I say I did not sleep for weeks after that. Every creak or noise outside made me jump. I started locking every window, even during the day. I would not let John out of my sight. Eventually, I made the decision to move. It took a couple of months to save up enough, but I broke the lease and found us a small home outside the city. A safer neighborhood, bigger backyard. Still have a garden too. John never really understood what he had found that day, and I never told him. He just remembers the bad tomato, as he called it. To this day, I never found out where that ear came from, or why there was another one down the street. And honestly, I'm okay never not knowing. I just hope it never happens again. I matched with this girl on Tinder last year. Her name was Erica. She was soft-spoken, into plants, books, and kind of had this quiet mystery about her that I found attractive. She lived about 40 minutes outside the city, in one of those older houses with tons of land and no neighbors for miles. On our third date, she invited me to her place, said she wanted to show me her garden. Now, I'm not much of a gardener, but I'm not kidding when I say it was one of the most beautiful setups I'd ever seen. I'm talking rows of flowers, vegetables, herbs, even some exotic plants I did not recognize. She said she built it all herself over the past 2 years. Well, we were walking through it and just talking when I noticed something weird half buried near one of the beds. It was this old, beat-up book, a little covered in weeds and dirt. I picked it up and wiped the cover clean. The title was something like Dark Pleasures, Invocation Through Desire. Honestly, it looked like some demonic sex ritual thing, if I'm being honest. I kind of laughed awkwardly and said, what is this? She smiled and said, oh, I must have left that out here. Like it was a pair of gloves or something. I asked if she was into this stuff, and she paused. Then she admitted she practiced witchcraft and was into energy manipulation. Now honestly, I hadn't gotten that vibe from her at all. Up until then, she seemed more like the yoga and tea type. I told her politely that it wasn't really my thing. I'm Christian, see, and anything that even feels slightly demonic is a hard no for me. But she kept her cool. She said she respected that, and handed me the book anyway. "Just read it before you decide what it really is," she said. I did not want to be rude, so I took it, but I had zero intention of cracking it open. I got home around midnight and just set the book on top of my dresser. Did not even think about it again, to be honest. I showered, lay down, and passed out pretty fast. I don't know what time it was when I woke up. The room was dark, but something was off. I couldn't move, like, at all. I've never had sleep paralysis in my life, but I've read about it, and that's exactly what it was. I was conscious, but locked in. I couldn't turn my head, or even wiggle my fingers. I was sweating like crazy. My heart was pounding out of my chest. Then, I noticed something. In the corner of my room, right by my dresser, where the book was, I saw a figure. It was a woman, I think, but her shape wasn't fully human. Just this all-black silhouette with a weird, humped posture. She was facing me, motionless at first, then slowly started swaying side to side. I can't describe how wrong she felt. Like, not just scary, but wrong. Her face wasn't clear, but I could tell she was staring right at me. I kept trying to move, to scream, to do anything, but I was stuck. I felt like I was suffocating under my own skin. Then, somehow, she was on top of me. I never saw her move. One second she was in the corner, the next she was straddling my chest, her face inches from mine. Her mouth was wide open, way wider than it should have been able to. It looked like it went straight down her throat, just this gaping void. Then, suddenly, I could move again. I shot upright and gasped so hard that I thought I was going to pass out. The room was empty. I sat there in the dark, soaked in sweat, then ran to the bathroom and threw up. I was so shaken I did not sleep for the rest of the night. The next day, I drove back to Erica's house. I told her I was giving the book back and that I did not think we should keep seeing each other. She did not argue, did not even seem surprised. She just said, "Okay," and took the book back. Now, this is the weirdest part. She walked straight into the garden and placed the book back in the exact same spot where I found it. Like, it had its place there. I asked her why she put it there, and all she said was, "You don't need to know." And that was the last thing she ever said to me. I blocked her number after that. Hadn't even heard from her since. But I'll tell you this, I never had another sleep paralysis episode again. My place felt lighter, safer. I don't know if it was psychological or what, but it felt like something dark had left with that book. I still think about that night sometimes, though, and I still wonder, why the heck was that book in the garden?